Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the movie A Quiet Place. The first one, we're going to be talking about the second one later in another video. So if you haven't seen it, don't be like my friend and go and watch the second one before you watch the first one. Please watch the first one and then also come and watch our video so that you don't get spoiled.
Yeah, that's
So, because
just
we are
fair.
going into spoiler territory here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Um, this movie feels like to me, it almost feels like what a student film could be with a higher budget.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% what I was thinking when I watched the first movie for the second time.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, there's like very little cast members,
Yep.
very little sets. There's not too much effects going on. But for a horror movie or just a movie in Hollywood in general, it's a very inexpensive movie to make. There's just not
Yeah.
a lot going on. It's just a bunch of people, and then sometimes you see the monster.
Yeah. Exactly. Up until the climax of the film where you get to see the monster a little bit more, but it does the whole thing that most horror movies do where it begins by giving you glimpses and pieces without showing you like fully the whole thing so that it can build on the fear. And when it finally does reveal itself at the end, then at that point in the movie, it's about just survival and getting away from the monster. But before that, it's about the mystery of what it is and how dangerous it is, and that's what's being played up.
Yeah, and I actually really love the way the movie opens, because it's very like.
You would. You would.
First of all, I meant before that, but yeah. I just really liked how they established the world and they show you like we're in an apocalyptic setting, and like it's very quiet. I mean, the name of the movie is A Quiet Place, so naturally it makes sense why people are quiet, but we still don't really know why. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it's actually ingenious that they use characters that already know sign language, and they have a character who is deaf who needs to know sign language, which makes sense why the whole family does.
Yep.
But like, how perfect is it that this family gets to communicate like they usually do because they already knew how, and so it's just. I just think it's awesome that in this setting that they're able to still communicate with each other using sign language, and it's not
Well,
too much different from their life before.
right. It also kind of gives you a reason to understand why it's believable that they could survive for as long as they have, especially with having two kids, because it's almost like the guy that has a bunker, that's a fallout shelter, and basically it's like, oh, you go and there's a nuclear fallout, but this person had a fallout shelter, and so of course this person survived because they were already uniquely geared to survive in this kind of environment. So it's kind of cool. And another cool thing that they do from a story point of view is the fact that the the weakness of the little girl is the monster's strength. So right away you have this kind of opposites within the world that you're creating. The strength of the monster, which is extreme hearing, is the weakness of one of your main characters, where she's deaf and can't hear anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we put these two entities into a room together, how do they interact? And that's what's really fun. That's another fun element about the movie.
Yeah, I just think like the concept is such a beautiful idea, and like the opportunity that it gives to cast someone who is an actual deaf person and then bring to light sign language, because that's another demographic or like another group that is underrepresented in Hollywood. So I feel like I really appreciated that. That not only did they cast someone that actually was deaf to play a deaf person, but they brought in sign language as a heavy use for communicating, and so it was really like, um, it just and I thought about the what the screenplay looked like, because there's barely any dialogue at all in this movie,
Hmm.
and so I just feel like it would have looked like a really interesting screenplay, like visually, like just to actually physically look at the screenplay. But just in general, it's just cool. It just makes
Yeah.
me happy.
One of the things I looked at, I feel like it said that there are 35 lines of dialogue spoken in the um, in the first movie, and only four characters actually speak. Which in this movie is basically all of them. I think there's only six characters in the movie, and only four main characters, because you have the four main characters are the family members, right? And
Hmm.
then I think the only two characters I can think about are the two characters that basically the
Died.
other two characters that get killed, like the little boy and the old man, right? I don't think
Hmm.
there's any other people in the movie besides them.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, so that's another reason why I'm just like, yeah, this feels like almost like a student film with a budget, because it's consolidated to not one location. There's like a few locations, but majority of the movie takes place in one location, being the farmhouse that they're staying at. And so because of that, as well as the fact that there's limited cast, limited dialogue, it really does kind of feel like it could, like there's a student film version of this movie that exists somewhere. But it's just really cool that they were able to make this movie and have it be as successful as it became, especially considering that there's not a whole lot of things going on as far as like talking and action and stuff like that. But we'll get into that more in a minute, because the movie is a really short movie too. But yeah, there's not a whole lot going on, but the movie still works.
Hmm. Yeah, and I really think that the whole setup was constructed really well because of not just establishing the world, but establishing like all the ways that they'd had to change their lives to be quiet, like how to live quietly, from like
Yeah.
having their pathways and routes, lined with sand so they could walk on the sand barefoot and not make any sounds that way. From how they played Monopoly on the rug, and they had to replace all the pieces with soft things. From not even being able to use plates, they have to use leaves, and like I'm pretty sure the food they eat has to be soft. So
Yeah.
like all those little
No fried
things.
chicken.
No fried chicken. I don't think there are any chicken left alive.
Right.
I'm surprised those raccoons were alive.
I was surprised any animal was alive. Like my roommate was like, "I'd like to be an animal in this world." I'm like, "I wouldn't. Animals don't know what's going on. Animals don't know how to shut up." So, and then they showed those raccoons dying. I'm like, "See."
Maybe like animals that don't make sounds, like snakes or.
Even a snake like hisses, right? It goes.
But it's so quiet though.
Mm,
I feel like
I don't know.
it wouldn't. It wouldn't figure it out, and yeah, I don't know. Do bears make sounds?
Do you? Yeah, bears make sound. All rattlesnakes in the world extinct. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, like you're right. Like the way they just throw us into the world. Like the second one gives us a little bit more setup as to like how these things happen, but in this one we're just thrown in, and I love it. And you're talking about like the opening of the movie. It's great because they're barefoot, they're running around in the store barefoot. They get to this point where the kid picks up the toy, and the parents look like he has a gun in his hand. They freeze, and they are so careful with taking those batteries out. And as you find out a couple of minutes later, you find out why. um and it's like I would have loved to see this movie without no, without seeing a trailer, because since I've seen the trailer, like kind of what the premise is. But if you saw this movie without seeing a trailer, like I could just see all of this as just being very, very intriguing. And that moment when the kid, and another way the sound is played, when that kid takes the batteries, and later on when they're walking and he puts it in, like you don't hear it, or you hear it go off, and it's like oh my gosh. And then they go to the daughter's perspective where she doesn't hear anything, but she sees the horrified looks on her parents' faces and she knows something's wrong. And then she turns and none of them move. The mother just falls to the ground because she knows there's nothing she can do, but the father's gonna try. And then he's too late. It's just and then the opening title comes up. It's a crazy opening.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the other thing is that the movie is actually pretty quiet, in the sense that you there's no dialogue clearly, so it makes the movie very very quiet because of that. And all you can really hear is movement, but they're trying to reduce that sound as well. So when
Yeah.
there is a sound, you really hear the sound, and I'm pretty sure they make it louder than like usual. But it because the movie is so quiet, it really amplifies everything. And like I don't like I know there's music, but not during the quiet moments.
No, the music predominantly plays at the end when it's tense um and they're having a battle against the monsters. That's predominantly when the music kind of kicks in, and the music is tense. The score, we can talk about it briefly, is very very. It's not like strings. It's very deep sounds. It's like doom 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 doom, doom. But it gets you really feeling the urgency of the situation, and it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, these characters are in danger. The the only time I think music actually plays is when there's no point in being quiet anymore. When the monster knows where you are, the monster's coming after you, then
Hmm.
music is playing. But when they're hiding or they're waiting and they don't know where the monsters are and the monsters don't know where they are, it's very little, if any, music at all.
Yeah, it's definitely only there to give you added stress.
Right? And another thing that's interesting about this movie is that it's an hour and 30 minutes. It's a really short movie, and it gets going pretty quickly. A lot of movies that we come out nowadays are around 2 hours, 2.5 hour films, but this movie is a very good exercise and a very good example of looking at getting to the point, because we start with something that tells you what the world is, explains the dangers, and now we know the rules are basically explained. And then the rest of the movie is used to establish that the wife is pregnant, the due date is coming up, the daughter and the father have they don't have the greatest relationship because of what happened at the beginning of the movie, and then before we know it, the farm is getting invaded and she's having her kid. And there's like I didn't skip over much in the movie. There's a scene at a waterfall, but that's basically the movie.
Yeah, and it's really simple, and like there's just something so great about it being so simple, because there's less room for complications. And
Mm-hmm.
and because it's not so complicated, you get to focus on making it look great, being able to showcase like the details, and being able to focus on the actors doing their thing. And I think that's exactly what they did in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I don't know that the kids have acted in other movies before this. I think that this is both of their first films. Like, obviously, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt have been in plenty of movies, so they're experienced actors. But these kids, I don't think are. And I think that they both did a really great job. I bought it. I bought the little boy's fear, and I bought the girl's her desire to try to prove herself and to make up for what she believed was her fault, and that is carried. So yeah, it's great. And now that I think about it, do we even know the characters' names?
I don't think they ever say each other's names in the first movie.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting too, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but then when the credits go, they do actually have names. They just didn't say the names like actually,
Right.
in the movie.
They have names for the script purposes, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, when there are so few people that you're interacting with, do you really need names?
No? Hey you.
Yeah, just like who else am I talking to? I'm looking
Right.
directly at you. Like, they're not even speaking, they're signing. So whoever they're signing to is the person that they are looking directly at.
Yeah.
So,
True. You're not getting people's attention because you're not calling for them.
hmm
So it's like if someone's not looking at you and something is coming, you just gotta hope they turn around fast enough so that you can be like, hey, 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 hey. Oh man, yeah. No, it's definitely pretty interesting. I am very impressed with their ability to do that.
yeah. And so we mentioned how there were only 6 characters,
Hmm.
and, well, half of them die.
Literally, yeah, you're right. 50% of your cast dies.
Which is great. I
Your
mean, it is
characters.
it is kind of a horror film. It's the kind of movie that people die in, and so I wasn't surprised. I was maybe a little taken aback that they killed the little kid at the beginning, but knowing me, I love that, and
I know you love that. That probably made the movie an A instantly. You didn't even watch the rest of the film. You're like, this is a great short film. All right, turning your movie off. Credits. Oh wait, there's another like hour and 20 minutes left in this movie. Oh, fine. I guess I'll watch. But you guys already did it for me.
yeah, I was like, how come like. Well, actually, I was a little bit disappointed that it took so long for the next death.
Oh my gosh.
For a short movie. But yeah, I was surprised that the dad died, but at the same time I was like, okay, sure. I mean, I didn't know there was gonna be another movie, so I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah, I mean they didn't know it was going to be another movie either. Basically, I think the way it went is that they wanted John Krasinski to make a second movie, and he said artistically there was no reason to make a second movie. And then they offered him $200 million, and I guess he found the artistic inspiration.
I mean, to be honest, the way it ended was so good. When I
Isn't it?
found when I found out they were making another one, I was like, how could they possibly? And then when I watched it, I was like, okay, we'll get into this later when we talk about the next movie. But I just want to say the way that it ended with like literally the mom, Emily Blunt, and her daughter figuring out how they can defeat these monsters. And they just like look at each other. They have this moment. They grab their weapons. She cocks the gun, and that's it.
Credits.
Like
Credits.
the rest of it,
Oh,
like you leave the rest to your imagination, and that's the best part. Like
yes.
less is more. That's like this whole movie. Less is freaking more, and it's so good, and like I just absolutely love the way it ended. So badass.
Yeah, Cheryl, what you're saying is exactly, and like you said, we'll talk about it more, but that's exactly one of my other biggest issues about the second movie is that when the second movie ends, it feels very bland to me. But when this first movie ends, it feels good. You feel like you're ready to start just cheering. They kill the one, and it's all done with just looks, by the way, no dialogue, just looks. They kill the one, and then they have this look at each other, and then they look at the screen and they see two more creatures running at them. And they're like, oh, they're coming here. So the mother turns to the daughter looks and she turns up the volume because she's ready to fight. And the mother just gives her that acknowledgement. And then, like you said, cocks a shotgun, boom, boom, credits. And then you're just like, and then cue music. It's one of the most satisfying endings in a movie that I've seen in a long, long time. You leave the theater feeling pumped, good, and excited. It's great. It's a great ride from start to finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you really don't need to see it, and it just feels so empowering for it to end that way on the two of them being like, okay, we know what we're gonna do. Let's go do it. Let's kick ass. We like they're not afraid anymore because they spent the whole movie being afraid, and they're finally not afraid. So
Yep. Yeah. That
yeah.
also will lead into another issue with the second movie, by the way. The whole thing about not being afraid. But for the purposes of this movie, though, it's a complete growth. It's a complete arc, and it makes sense. And even the moment that the dad has with the daughter before he dies, when saying "I will always love you," beautiful moment before he chooses to scream in order to save the daughter's life. It's great. It's just you feel it. Um, I don't think this movie is a perfect movie. There are some issues that come from making like a creature feature with something like this because you want to establish what the rules are. And in this world, the rule is if it hears you, it can find you. But then there are times when they are quiet and the monsters still find them, and you're kind of like, why would the monster go to where the dad was by the axe when he hasn't made any noises? He wouldn't know that the dad is there. Or why would the creature go up the steps if the mother hasn't made any sounds, or come down the steps if the mother hasn't made any sounds? So there's some of those moments that are a little weird, but because the rest of the movie works so well, I'm willing to like not let that take me out of the movie too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely had the same questions. Like, how did the monster end up downstairs? Like, where did the water come from in the first place when the basement was flooding? And then, how come the monster was down there coincidentally? Actually, I had another question for you. What do the red lights mean? Does it mean
It
she's
means
giving
that
birth or that the house is under attack?
I thought that it meant the house was under attack. That's what, and yeah, it's not made clear, but that's how I took it. Because I guess the timing was about the same, right? Her water broke and the creatures were attacking, but when she did it, but I imagine that that was their system that they set up so that if somebody was far away and coming back, they could warn them that it's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I read it.
Yeah, it was a little unclear to me, but if you like actually go back and look at it, she her water breaks. She goes down the stairs, and then she goes down to the basement. That's when she breaks something and makes a sound. So then the question is, why did she go down to the basement? Because when she's down there, she flips the switch. So that led me to come to a conclusion that it probably meant I'm giving birth right now.
Mm.
Because because she didn't make a sound yet until she went down there.
Right, and you're like, and when you're asking why was she going down there at all?
Yeah, because when she was there, all she did was flip the switch.
Right, right. I
But
mean, yeah,
but she broke the thing, so while she was down there, she could have been like, "Oh, I need to flip the switch." So
yeah,
it's
yes,
unclear. Unclear.
yeah. So I mean, it could be either or, but the point is that when they arrive, they at least, you know what? I might be more inclined to think that it meant danger because when they arrive, um, the father doesn't take the son with him into the house. The father tells the son to stay outside and launch the fireworks to help the mom, which
Mm-hmm.
makes it so that he knows that the mom is in trouble. So yeah, so because of
Unclear.
that, I might say that it's more so we're in danger.
Let's ask the director on Twitter.
Yeah, let's send a message to John Krasinski.
But
So
yeah, like that's another thing like that I wanted to say is that because there's no dialogue, they really have to show us everything. They have to explain everything visually, which is another beautiful thing for filmmaking. Is because that is the best. Like, there's no exposition in this, basically.
I basically it's all show. He's
Yeah.
like, it's all about show don't tell. Well, now you don't have a choice.
Yeah, and I think that's like another reason why it's such a great movie because they really had to lean on that aspect of filmmaking and not shortcut it so much. Maybe like the newspaper clippings and stuff like that and writing things, but it's just another way of kind of cheating by telling visually.
You have to tell the audience something.
Yeah, there's some things that you just have to do, but the very fact that there's so little dialogue that they can't speak to each other makes like it forces that hand. They force themselves to do it, and I think that it's a really creative way to make the film.
Agreed. Did you notice that the movie, the bad thing happened, like this invasion and stuff happened in 2020?
What do you mean?
So when you look at the little boy's birth and death, it says 2016 to 2020. So when the little boy dies at the start of the movie, is 2020, but this movie was made in 2018.
Oh,
So in
whoa.
2018, they were writing about how some type of strange world altering event was going to happen in 2020 where a bunch of people were going to die and the world would change forever.
Wow. Okay. That's telling. I did not notice that. Can we talk a little bit about the nail?
Oh. The plot device nail.
That's probably one of the most memorable moments of this movie. And that's the other thing I was gonna say. There's a lot of memorable moments in this movie, from the ending, which I can't even remember how the second movie ended, but I 100% remember how the first movie ended.
You just the second movie. You don't remember how it ended?
It's not memorable. Not memorable. Plus, I watched a million things after that, so that was
Fair
Saturday.
enough,
It's Monday.
I mean, I agree with you. I just think it's funny.
But yeah, that nail thing was another one of those most memorable moments in this movie. But I'm just like, I see you getting squeamish. Which is it's funny because I don't mind watching gory things, but when I knew she was gonna step on it, I was like, no, I
I can't look. I can't look at it.
can't. It's because it's something that could actually really happen to
Happen?
you.
Yes. And that nail was thick. That nail was long.
Yeah. But I was just like, why is the nail there? How could they have not noticed it, like, ever, that, like, a nail was starting to come out, and that, you know, like, you would think that they would notice and
Yeah.
and make sure that they're making their space safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it's like, even because it happens because her dress gets caught on it, and then like she like pulls.
And she pulls it. Like, you wouldn't think, like, what is it caught on? Let me go look at it.
Yeah, and she had other things to worry about. She had to do that laundry.
Well, it bit her in the butt, so the foot at least.
But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Because I basically hit all my major points. I love this movie. I think it's great.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I had a real question about was the sand trails that they made.
You know how they get all that sand?
Well, that one, and two, wouldn't the wind blow it away? So wouldn't it kind of be impractical?
They had to pack it. They packed it really, really tightly.
I'm not convinced.
Well, here's another question for you. How did the lid of the baby's cradle come off when the basement started flooding?
Yes, I asked myself that too. How about the doors to the silo?
The what? The what?
The doors to the silo.
Oh, yeah, how they just break.
Yeah.
Hey man, they're like, we still need to have a movie.
Yeah. Things have to go wrong.
Right? Or even how you think to yourself, you know what? I should probably just stay here on top of the silo because of the fact that there's a bunch of creatures running around. I'm at least safe here. Even if my dad doesn't come for me, maybe I shouldn't move around at night. So we're just gonna stay here until the morning, at the very least.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
all in all, great movie.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, I didn't have all these questions. I just accepted it because I was enjoying it. It was all making sense to me. But when you have a chance to watch it a second time and, you know, have the ability to pause it and rewind it and comb through it and write notes about it and criticize it, you're gonna do it.
Right. Exactly. So, but yeah, that's what we thought about A Quiet Place Part 1, which we didn't know was a Part 1 at the time. But have you guys seen it? What do you guys think about it? Oh, do you think that it is a smart choice? Before I close out, this just came to my mind. Why on earth do you allow yourself to get pregnant when you know that you're in the middle of an apocalypse?
Accidents happen.
I know. And that's just the problem. You can't afford for things to happen. You already had 3 kids. So this is a woman who's given birth 3 times already. This is her 4th kid. You should know how to be safe by now.
Right, but what if it's, if you're thinking about the human population, you kind of have a sense of responsibility to carry on and ensure the survival of your species? Especially when you just lost one. Gotta make a new one.
Gotta make a new one. We can't have only 2 kids. We gotta have 3. Doesn't matter if it means that our other kids are gonna be at risk and we could also die. Gotta have 3 kids. Just gotta be that way. All right, y'all. We'll continue talking about this on Twitch. But yeah, have you guys seen the movie? What did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.